prayer used to me mean something that you ask for and you want that answer. And I think now prayer to me has just become someone's deepest core of them trying to hold on to hope.
From Mamma Mia, I'm Mia Friedman, and you're listening to No Filter, where I have candid conversations that count. A few years ago, I heard about two Australian sisters who were doing incredible things in the New York fashion industry. Simi Polonsky and her sister Chaya grew up near Sydney's Coogee Beach. They were part of a big Jewish family of 7 kids. Their dad was an Orthodox Rabbi, and their strict faith meant that their mother wore a wig to cover her hair whenever they went out in public. Being Orthodox also meant that the family didn't eat certain foods like shellfish and pork, and they lived by a pretty strict set of rules dictated by their religion. One of these rules is around women and men being covered up. No bare arms or legs, no tight-fitting clothes, which was challenging growing up in a beachside Sydney suburb. In their early 20s, Simi and her sister both happened to marry American men, also from the Orthodox Jewish community, and they moved to New York. Like lots of young women, Simi and Chaya loved fashion, but they really struggled to combine their desire for fashionable clothes that would also meet their religious requirements of being covered up. So they decided to design their own. And in true lady startup style, that's how their label, TheFrockNYC, was born. As I said, I've been following these two women on Instagram for a while now and cheering them on from the sidelines as their business has really taken off. It's not just Jewish women who love and wear the Frock NYC, it's also Muslim women and Christian women, Mormon women, non-religious women, and even some celebrities who've all embraced the so-called modest fashion trend. Then, in 2017, something unexpected and shocking happened to Simi. Her strong, healthy husband, Shua, got sick and died in the space of just a couple of weeks, while Simi was pregnant with their third child. Simi was back in Australia at the end of last year, and with a warm hug and a big box of tissues, I invited her into Mamma Mia to come and share her love story. I want to start by asking you about growing up in Coogee, a beachside suburb in Sydney, as an Orthodox Jew.
I love this question because even those two things together, Orthodox Jew and beachside suburb in Sydney, are so contradictory.
That's true.
And it's so funny because I loved growing up there. And every time I come back from New York, I say, oh my God, I'm so happy I live here. It's a little bit out from the main Jewish community. And why I love it so much is because now coming back, it's like it's a bit of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And in a way, that was the spin on our childhood. We were really the only Orthodox family in Coogee Beach, in, I would say, even a 5-mile radius, whatever it is.
It's not known as a hotbed of Orthodox Judaism.
Definitely not.
For those who don't know, what characterises Orthodox Judaism?
Well, I would say to try and make something not black and white, very black and white, just for sentence sake, we practice Shabbat. So every Friday afternoon till Saturday afternoon, sunset to sundown, it's no phone zone, no electricity. We go to services, we go to synagogue Friday night and Saturday day. It's a big family time. Our lives are completely different in terms of what we eat, what we do, what we wear, where we go. So everything is dictated by our religion in a sense that we can't go to restaurants that everyone goes to because we only keep kosher. In Sydney, there's not many kosher restaurants. We can't go to a vacation spot where everyone necessarily goes to because if there's no kosher food, then you can't go there technically.
And explain what it means to be kosher.
Kosher, I would say, is a religious standard of dietary laws that we abide by to eat. There are certain animals which we eat. They have to be killed in a certain way, in a very peaceful, not harmful, painful way for the animal. We don't eat meat and milk together. And it gets actually very complicated because when you go to the supermarket, you would say, well, olive oil should be kosher. It's just a vegetable. But the way things are manufactured and produced, they like to have a rabbi supervising it just to make sure all the ingredients that go in are technically kosher.
So Muslim people have halal.
Yes.
Orthodox Jewish people keep kosher.
Yes.
And that's one of the, I guess, external manifestations of your faith as an Orthodox Jew.
Yes, the way we practice.
Yeah. So Your father's a rabbi.
Yes.
I can't imagine what it was like to grow up in Sydney near the beach, because another thing is about dressing, certain standards of dress and quite covered up.
Yeah.
Married women must cover their hair with wigs. All women and men pretty
More
much
covered.
more covered.
Yes.
So for women, it's covering elbows, collarbones and knees.
Yes.
And pretty loose clothes.
Technically.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how did that work in a beachside suburb in the, where did you grow up, the 90s, the 2000s?
I was born 86.
80s,
yeah, 90s,
oh, the
2000.
80s, okay, yeah.
Well, I was only 4 in the 90s, but I'm going to say just from the outset, how Chaya and myself got dressed as kids was the biggest thing we fought about with our mum. Because picture this, we're in Coogee Beach and like during the week we'd be in school, for example. Saturday would come and we'd go to services, and the afternoon we'd go for a walk, because what else could you do? You go to the park, go for a walk. My dad would be wearing the typical religious garb, which is black pants and a white shirt. And he's got a black beard and he looks very Orthodox. And the way my mum would dress us would be wearing like these big frou-frou dresses that were frilly and floral and covered. And we'd be walking down Coogee Bay Road on the way to the beach, and people are wearing short shorts, singlets, bikinis. And I remember I actually hated it as a child, like looking so different and sticking out.
Yeah.
I remember like my dad is very comfortable in his own skin, and I guess the way my parents raised us was they didn't tell us, but the way they lived was they showed us how to synergize the world around them and the faith that they chose to practice. And as a child, I hated it. But as I grew up, for example, we'd walk down the road, my dad would be singing Shabbat songs, and I would wanted to bury myself in the ground. I'd be like, get me out of here. I hate this. But I remember as a child and as a teenager, I said, I don't want to dress like this. I hate this. I want to do something else. But I also respected my parents and our family value system.
And as the daughter of a rabbi, all eyes were on you, and you had 2 sisters and how many other siblings?
4 brothers and 2 sisters, so there's 7 of us.
The other thing that characterises Orthodox Jewish families is often big families.
Yes.
Big families. So there were 7 of you. Where did you fit in the...
I'm the 3rd. So I've got an older brother, then Chaya's 2nd, and I'm 3rd.
So you and your sister, who was a little bit older, you, I guess, did the usual rebellious stuff.
It's interesting. It wasn't a form of like, oh my God, I want to eat non-kosher, I want to do this. It didn't feel so rebellious in that sense, because our parents, as much as they were they said, this is what we do and we want you to do this, it didn't feel shoved down our throats. They kind of gave us a bit of space, and their idea was use your initiative. So if we're going to synagogue, and this is a huge part of how me and Chaya dress today, they said, if we're going to synagogue, we expect you to wear such and such. But we were allowed to go to the beach as children. And so I remember swimming. My mum would always wear like a long kaftan and a hat, and I wore a bathing suit as a kid. But it just gave me a sensitivity about clothing, and it was more about an attitude. It was like, this is my body, know where you're going. This is more about an attitude about how you're dressing, not necessarily about measurements. Even though they were strict, but they gave us a bit of the freedom to say how to dress according to a value system and not feel so pressured by it.
It's not about shame for your body, is it? Or about, some would say it seems repressed, that you can't, what's wrong with your body? It's the body God gave you. Yeah. Why can't you wear whatever you want?
And that's actually that's a really good question, but it's one of the huge things that we want to smash that stereotype, because we want to say, why does it necessarily have to mean that showing more is revealing everything? And in response to that, I understand that everyone has a freedom of choice, and if someone wants to show more, that's the way they express themselves. But when I say smash stereotypes, it's saying if a woman chooses to exercise her right to cover up more because that's how she's comfortable, it doesn't mean that she's not intelligent. It doesn't mean that she's not expressing herself. It just means that she's choosing to express herself from the inside out, and not necessarily how much skin she shows is going to show more of who she is as a person. And that's the stereotype that we want to diffuse, because it's 2018 and people still are shocked, and they say to me, what, you're religious? No, I don't. They see me in Chaya dressed and they're like, I do not believe it at all. And we say, why? And they said, because you look normal. You. And I'm like, really? And it's showing people that this is about a choice. This is the way I feel comfortable, and I feel confident this way. And I'm going to show the world who I am regardless of how much skin I'm revealing.
What took you to America?
My husband.
How did you meet Shua?
So me and Shua met. I was 18. I'd finished my HSC, and a lot of the Orthodox Jewish kids from Sydney, they take a gap year and go to Israel or wherever, and I went to Israel. So I remember it was actually the first time my family had gone on an overseas trip together. We had never gone. And the night we arrived, there was all 7 of us. All 7 of us were there. And my mum said to all of us, tomorrow we're going on a trip. It's a huge tiyul, which is a trip in Hebrew, and we're all going to bed. Everyone go to bed. I'm waking you all up at 7. We've got an arranged tour. Let's go. So Chaya, my sister, had been living in Israel the year before, and of course she knew the party scenes, where to go, what to do, what not to do. And as soon as my mum left the room, she's like, okay, Simi, we're going out. So she took me to the town, and she knew everyone. So we walk into this bar, and there's a huge table of like 20 guys. And they're all like American, loud and rowdy. And Chaya and I were the only 2 females at that. And Chaya knew all of them from the year before. And there was this one guy at the back of the table. He was just like so sweet looking, and his whole demeanor was just like sweet and sensitive, and he wasn't fighting for my attention like everybody else. And I was like, ooh, I was kind of drawn to him. And I swear the rest of the night I tried to fight for his attention. He pretty much just ignored me. And walking home that night, I said to Chaya, I'm going to marry that guy. That was the first night we met. And the next morning we went on tiyul. But what happened was Shua had gone. It was the American summer, so it was July. We arrived in July, and school in Israel doesn't start till September. So Chaya and I had the entire summer to just like party it up. And when I announced to Chaya that I'm marrying this guy, I thought, okay, I'm going to go out tomorrow night and see him. But it turned out he had gone back to the States. I didn't know he was only going for 2.5 months, but we kind of lost contact. And Facebook and Instagram, it was totally not those times. So I was just like, okay, I met this guy. I want to marry him, but I don't know. So 2.5 months later, I'm sitting in a different bar, same area. And I had obviously told all my friends that I met this guy. I want to marry him.
What made you think you wanted to marry him?
Do you know, when I think about it now, I think that I'm mad. I don't know. And I think it must have been such a deep soul connection. I must have just felt something, because if someone would tell me that now, I would have been like, you are deciding to marry someone, you just saw them and you spent a few hours with them and you hardly even spoke, and now you want to marry them. I would be like, you are crazy.
Did you have a conversation that night?
A few, but not, it wasn't so, a few. We spoke a little.
Yeah. And had you had boyfriends before?
I did, unknown to my parents. Yeah.
Right.
Because that also going to Israel, my parents said, I'm just letting you know, no boyfriends. Yeah, no boyfriends. Chaya had met her husband the year before, and they were like, do not do what your sister did. So I was going with this huge weight saying, no boyfriend, no boyfriend, no boyfriend. So
the expectation obviously was that you would marry within your faith.
Yes.
Are marriages in the Orthodox community arranged?
They are arranged, but it doesn't have the kind of, when you say arranged, it sounds like no choice. You can't exercise your right to be yourself. You've got to sit in a room for 10 minutes. It's not like that at all. Arranged means, let's say you, a friend of yours, and you'd be like, oh, my son would be amazing for her. What do you think about setting them up?
It's not like a setup.
It's a setup, and it's really actually convenient, because it takes away that whole factor of, is she ready? Is she not ready? Are we just going to date for ages? Because we don't know. Automatically, when you're set up, you both know that you're both in it to get married.
Yeah, if it's like being on Tinder or JDate,
exactly.
It's the same thing.
Exactly.
You're both ready.
Yes.
So you were in this bar, and what happened 2 months later?
So I was in this bar, and 2 months later, I see Shua walk in. And I got all excited, and all of a sudden I see next to him this gorgeous girl walking into him. And I looked at my friends. I was like, it was very dichotomy of feelings, because on the one hand I was so excited, and then I was so upset that he was with this other girl. And then half an hour later I find out it's his sister.
Excellent.
So that was very exciting. But it turns out that for that year, Shua had decided to throw himself in spirituality and Jewish studies and Kabbalah and Chassidut and learn, and he wasn't looking for a relationship. And turns out either was I. I went to the north of Israel, he was in the center, and we didn't really see each other much. We spoke a little, my friends would tease me here and there, but it was never a relationship. I'd never told Shua anything that
your plans that you were going to get married.
No, I did not tell him my plans.
He was still in the dark about that.
He was totally in the dark. He's just everyone. No one knew except like some of my good friends and my sister. And the year passed and I came back to Sydney a year and a half later. I went to White House Fashion School, and Chaya, also in an Orthodox family, generally the older sibling gets married first. It's not always like that, but generally my parents weren't looking to set me up because Chaya still was single.
Like in Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah.
There's a special order of the way things go.
Yeah, so it does have that, I would say, shtetl, what's the English word for that?
Old world tradition
type of aspect to it, definitely. So Chaya had just gotten engaged a year and a half after I was back in Sydney. So my parents were like, okay, Simi, so what about this guy and this guy? And I got an email from this person, you want to date him? And I was like, no. Actually, I just want to, there was this guy that I met in Israel. And my parents were like, what? You met a guy? You had a boyfriend? You lied to us? I said, no, I actually didn't have a boyfriend. I just met this guy and I really think I'm going to marry him. I just want to go out with him. So my parents did what most Orthodox Jewish parents do. They made some phone calls, found out about his family, and then they called a friend of his and a friend and a friend, and they said, can one of you call Shua and see if you're interested in dating Simi? And I thought for sure he'd say yes. I was just like, yeah, we're getting married. So he said no. So all of a sudden my parents, so I said, did you find out? Did someone call Shua? And they're like, yes, but he said no. I was soul crushed. I was so crushed. I really cried a lot. And for the next year and a half, I eventually moved to New York a few months later to date. And marrying Shua was an obsession. And my mum said to me after a while, and over that year and a half, I had gone out on other dates that was set up. And my mum was like, Simi, you're saying no to all these eligible bachelors. This one wants to live in Australia. He's in business. He does this. He does that. And I'm like, Mum, I don't care if I wait till I'm 40. I'm going to marry Shua. She's like, he doesn't want to go out with you. You are mad. She thought I was mad. And I did kind of feel mad. I'm not going to lie.
So you moved to New York specifically to date?
Just to date, because I was in White House here.
Yeah. So I was going to ask about that, because another preconception about very religious communities is that the women should not have careers and the women do not work, and that their role is to stay at home with the children. Were you ambitious?
Very. And it's interesting.
Was that in conflict with your faith and
not
your upbringing?
At all. It's actually so encouraged by my parents. And that's a huge stereotype as well. And one of the things I love and feel so proud about having this business with Chaya is that I look back, and we do come from a family of rabbis. They're not in the business world. We don't have that drive, be successful and be big in business. It's more do what you want and follow your dreams. So we do have that encouragement, and actually our mum and dad are our biggest fans. But that's something I'm so proud about, to show women and girls, regardless of their faith, but specifically to people who don't understand that an Orthodox woman can be in the business world or follow their dreams and not have to stay in the kitchen. We're like, guys, you can do it. It's actually really hard, but you can do it.
So you went to White House, which is a fashion design school here, and then you decided to move to New York because the Jewish community is bigger there. The pond was bigger in which to fish.
Yes, that's exactly the reason. There was more guys to date there.
And how did that dovetail with your business idea or your love of fashion and wanting to pursue that?
When I moved to New York, I was there. I did not have a green card, so I was like flying back and forward, and I didn't work in fashion at all. I couldn't really work then. I was nannying for some friends. And then it wasn't until a few years into my marriage with Shua, when I was living in Cleveland, that me and Chaya, it was one conversation on the phone. I was living in Cleveland. This was after I was married. She was living in New York. She was working in a online watch company. And I was working in this boutique in Cleveland. Cleveland is so not fashionable. There is no fashion at all there. And the boutique I was in, I would say, would be like the most high-end, exciting boutique. And after a year of working there, I was getting paid like $9.85 an hour after tax or something like that. I called Chaya and said, Chaya, I am so done. Why am I making amazing outfits for other people in someone else's business when it's not even me? I want to do something on my own. And she's like, Simi, I am so done of selling watches. And we always, as kids, we always knew we loved fashion, had a knack. As teenagers here, we gained a reputation for, I would say, putting a fashionable spin on modest clothing to the point where people didn't know that we were specifically modest dresses.
So what kinds of things would you do?
We'd go Sundays, because Saturdays, obviously, we couldn't go to the markets. But Sundays, Chaya and my favorite spot was the Bondi markets. We'd go there, find tops, vintage, was Bondi markets and also Queen Street and Wallara. We'd go to all the vintage shops there, and a lot of people, they would take like a short dress, and because we don't wear skirts above our knees, they'd put just like a tight little skirt underneath. I could not bring myself to do that. I would be like, it's ruining the dress. It doesn't even look good. I want to try make it work because I want to be respectful to this faith that I'm choosing to live by. And we'd go to Tessuti, the fabric store. We'd buy like crocheted lace and spotlight, and we'd attach all different things on the edge, and it would look like the dress was supposed to be like that. And that was our whole aesthetic. It was about making our fashionable choices modest. We modestified what we wanted to wear pretty much.
Taking you back to being in New York.
Yes.
Sex in the City, except without the sex, just the city.
Yes, no sex before marriage.
Single girl in the city, dating up a storm in the Orthodox community.
Yeah.
But still pining for this guy that you'd spent all of, a couple of hours with in person?
Yeah.
How did you start dating? Because at the moment, he still doesn't want to date you.
He still does not want to date me, no. So I would say, I had asked my sister, I was like, Chaya, just ask your husband Moshe, who had known Shua from Israel. It's like, just ask him again. So he was the second person that asked him, like a few months later. And Shua said no.
Again?
I was crushed. Shua said no. It was a period of a year and a half that I was dating in New York. We asked Shua 4 times if he wanted to go out with me, and he said no. You'd think I would have given up. You'd think I would
got the message.
Got the message. And I said to Chaya, I'm like, why didn't I just call him? She's like, I think that is a very, very bad idea. But there were many points, and I used to lie in bed at night, and like I had never prayed so hard in my entire life. I was like, this is my life. I know I need to marry him. I just need to figure out how to do it.
He just needs to know that.
He needs to know. So he had no idea about my obsession this entire year and a half. He just thought that 4 random people called him up all to ask about me. He had no idea.
Cunning plan.
Very cunning. So one night, this is how it all fell into place. I went to my best friend's engagement party in New York, and Rachel, Shua's sister, the girl that walked in with him at the bar that night, she was there, and of course, all I wanted to do that night was talk to Rachel the entire night and sell my best self. I didn't say anything. I pretended that I was not interested in her brother at all. Oh, how's Shua? Great. That's so nice. We chatted the whole night. And at the time, I was actually dating someone else. And my mom was like, she was hoping that I would fall for this guy because Chaya was living in New York. She was desperate for me to live in Sydney. And this guy said, I'm going to come live in Sydney for you. And I remember that afternoon, he had sent me like 30 bunches of flowers to the place where I was nannying. And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, I'm going to say no to this guy because I can't. And then I came home that night from nannying, whatever, and Chaya walks into the room. And I was on the phone to my mom, actually. I was telling her that I'm breaking up with this guy. And I was crying. I was hysterical because she was upset. She's like, Simi, what's wrong with you? Shua is just a dream. Like, what is this? And then Chaya walks into the room. She's like, Simi, Rachel Polonsky just called. And I'm like, Chaya, this is really not the time. Don't joke with me. Like, I'm really not doing well right now. And she's like, no, I'm serious. Shua wants to go out with you. And right then and there, I was like, I'm marrying Shua. I mean, I thought that in my head. I knew I was. So I was elated. I was crying and happy, and I was like nervous. And a week later, it was actually Jewish New Year time. So he was in college, but he had off for 2 weeks, like something break. And he flew into New York. I already knew I was marrying him. I just had to figure out how to let him know that we were going to get married. And I remember the first date, I only wear loose clothing, and even our entire marriage, I wore the tightest clothing I could when we dated. I was like, whatever it takes. I need to win him over, whatever it takes. And He went back after 2 weeks. We dated actually all in all for like 3 months. But he said to me, Simi, we're not going to be able to get engaged for about 6 months because I'm in school and I'm not ready. And I was like, that's fine. Anything you say, as long as we get married, I don't care what. I didn't know that Shua had called my dad after a couple of weeks and he asked for my hand in marriage. So my dad called me and he said, Simi, I don't like that you're taking so long dating with Shua. If you know, you just know. I said, Dad, do not pressure him. He's in school. He needs to just – meanwhile, my dad knew the whole time he was just playing me. A few weeks later, Shua takes me to Rockefeller Center. We're on the ice skating rink and the end they're ushering everyone off. And I said, Shua, let's go. And he's like, let's just stay on for a bit. I was like, I don't know. I'm actually a very naive person. And I didn't even notice that we were the last two skating on the ice skating rink. And I didn't even notice a switch in music. Like there was like regular radio music on and all of a sudden Jewish music had come on. I didn't even notice. And after all of a sudden I look around and I'm like, there are like hundreds and hundreds of people around the skating rink looking. And I'm like, Shua, what are we doing? And then he gets down on one knee. I was like, get up. What are you doing? I was so embarrassed. He's really ballsy. He's so gutsy. And he proposed to me. And I had already known that I was marrying him, but yeah, it was amazing.
You got married.
We got married.
You had 2 girls.
2 girls, yes.
And you were pregnant with your 3rd child.
Yes.
And then in November last year, he got sick very suddenly. What happened? You thought he had the flu.
I never wear makeup anymore.
I'm sorry to take you back to that time. Would you rather not talk about it?
It's fine. It's the only thing I think about now, so I guess talking about it is like the real me.
Yeah.
It just, it's the new air that I breathe, so.
It's your new normal.
It's my new normal. Shua was like the healthiest person you could know. He ran marathons. We ate really healthy and we were living a long life. That was our plan. We had a lot of dreams and hopes, and he just got his doctorate in psychology right before he got sick. And it's even weird when I say got sick because I still don't think that he got sick. It's just strange to me because he was so healthy. And he just got his first job in a private practice in Manhattan. He was a really good therapist, really good. He just was a great natural listener, really empathetic and so wise, so smart and so insightful, and just genuinely cared about people. And it was like his first 2 weeks in the practice and they already loved him. And he called me one Monday and he's like, Sim, I'm feeling so like I've got a terrible headache. He's like, I'm just going to take 2 Tylenol and I'll just see you later. I was like, okay, that's fine. And after work, he's like, I can't even go on the train home. I need an Uber. I feel like I'm coming down with the flu. So he got back Monday night, he came home from the Uber and he was like, I feel so sick. I for sure have the flu. And Monday night and Tuesday, he had really typical flu-like symptoms, fever, throwing up, and it wasn't like something that you go to the hospital for. And by Wednesday morning, he actually felt a little bit better at some points, and the flu sometimes lasts for a couple of days. He felt a little bit better maybe on the Tuesday night, he could not sleep. He was just tossing and turning. And Wednesday morning, he's like, Sim, you got to call the hospital. He's like, I really just don't feel good. I think I need to go to the hospital. So I'm like, okay. I was not worried in the slightest. I was actually a few months pregnant, and that day I was going to get the results for the Down syndrome test. And I was way more nervous about that than, I don't know why, it's just something that you have those fears and you think about it. I was like, sure, I need to go to my doctor. They don't give you the results on the phone. I'll go to the doctor. My younger brother, who is an angel, all my siblings are angels, Shua's siblings too. He said, I'll go with Shua to the ambulance. He'll probably give him some fluids and he'll be back in a few hours. So that's what we did. I went to my doctor in the city. I saw him go into the ambulance. We were talking and I was in touch with my brother the whole day. They're like, no, he's fine, just needs some fluids. We might need to keep him for overnight observation. So when my brother called me around when I was leaving the city, I said, should I come straight to you? He said, no, go home, get a bag because they want to keep him overnight. I said, okay, fine. They want to keep him overnight, observation. Anyway, when I when I got to the hospital, even when I got my younger brother who was with Shua the whole day, younger brother met me outside and he wasn't worried at all because everyone was so calm. Like, yeah, Shua's got the flu. He's just needs fluids. I said, great, I'll come up. By the time I had come upstairs, I could sense that it was kind of like frantic around Shua in the room. And the nurse had come up to me and she said, Simi, Shua's heart's not looking good. I said, what? It was actually in front of Shua. They were like saying, can you sign these papers? Can we do this surgery and this surgery? And like they were just rattling. And I was like,
was he conscious?
Really out of it. When you're like, he was really out of it. He was conscious, but like so not feeling good. And I said, can we just come outside? I actually didn't want to worry him. I said, can we just come outside? Because I knew that Shua was listening. And they said, this is really severe. And I said, what are you talking? I said, I speak fashion. I don't speak medical terms. What are you talking about? And when they just started breaking the news that his almost had complete heart failure, I was screaming like in the room with all the doctors. I was like, what is going on here? He has the flu. And anyway, he was taken to another hospital, to NYU, where they said to me that night, they said, your husband has a 50% chance of living after this surgery. And I completely lost it in the hospital because I was like, no, I don't think you guys understand. My husband's fine. He just has the flu. And the only people that heard that was me, my younger brother, and Shua's, and Tirt's actually, my sister, and Shua's one sibling. So I called all the family immediately. I said, guys, everyone come. But I didn't tell them what the doctors had said because I was like, Shua's going to be fine. I didn't want anyone to have any negative thoughts. I wanted everyone just to be positive and hopeful, and Shua's going to be fine. And for those 3 weeks in hospital, I pretty much didn't leave the hospital for 3 weeks. And I thought, I knew he would make it. I ended up using our social media. I said, I just want to get as many people to pray. And everyone believed he would make it because I believed he would make it. And no matter what the doctors told me, it didn't actually matter what they told me because I was like, he's coming home. I told my kids that their dad was coming home. So 3 weeks later when they kept saying it's a miracle that your husband's here this long because people in these conditions, they don't make it. They said he's so healthy and he's so strong that he's fighting so hard. They said most people with this condition, they just, after 24 hours usually is the maximum, maybe 48.
What was wrong with him, Simi?
He got, now I didn't know then, but now it's called myocarditis. It's a virus that attacks the heart. And it's any virus that anyone could get, but unfortunately it went to his heart. But the thing is, all the technicalities and everything that actually happened to him, to me, if I go down that road, I go way too deep in a loop of trauma that I can't actually live with. So to me, it was just like, I'm really angry at God because God is the one that, to me, God said, okay, this is your time and I'm going to take you. And I'm so mad about that.
Yeah.
So as much as I've got, my relationship with God has taken on a whole new experience, I would say.
People who experience the Holocaust, who survived the Holocaust, often went one of two ways. Either they lost their faith or their faith was deepened but forever changed.
Yeah.
Because how do you reconcile a God that you believe in so deeply with a God that could allow something so terrible to happen?
Yeah, I relate to that so much. And I thought I understood then about what death was, and even reading people's experiences in the Holocaust and loss, and until now that I've actually experienced it, death has taken on an entire new meaning, which I don't even understand myself, and it's still a whole new meaning. And the only books that I can now read, I actually haven't read for months, it's been almost a year, is the first book I picked up and I just started flicking through it is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And I just started, it was Shua's favorite book actually, and I just started reading The Choice by Dr. Edith Eger. And I asked my friends about their grandparents, did they stay religious, who didn't? And I'm so obsessed about it. How did people come out of this huge trauma and abuse, like inhumane trauma and abuse, and come out and still live? And they built families and they live and they forget about whether they held on to their faith or not. Even the fact that they were just able to mentally survive is so mind-blowing to me.
Were you able to talk to Shua during those 3 weeks?
I spoke to him, but he couldn't speak to me.
He was unconscious?
He was highly sedated. It was more just like I'd be like, Shua, can you squeeze my left hand? And he would. Or Shua, can you like blink your eyes and do this? And he did that. And they kept saying his cognition is so amazing. Like, this is so strange. He knows what's going on. And during the time when Shua was sick, it was so, the experience in the hospital was like another world. All Shua's siblings and whatever family members and friends that were there at the time, we became so obsessed with prayer and spirituality and connecting and hope and faith that we clung to it like little children holding on to like their mums. And we were in this bubble of hope, and it was, I had this strong hope, but at the same time, I've never been so anxious in my entire life. I mean, now also, but I was pregnant and I lost like 30 pounds just in those 3 weeks. But we were so committed to Shua's recovery that it felt like there was like a war of the worlds going on around Shua's bed. And the nurses, they kept saying, they're like, Simi, this is different. I'm telling you, there's something else going on here. He's not supposed to be living right now for what his body is going through. And the world, Shua's recovery went viral on social media. People were sending good wishes and prayers from Singapore, New Zealand, like everywhere around the world. And I felt like there was this huge, it was like a tsunami of love around the world, of love and prayer. And I really felt like there was a war of the worlds going on around Shua, and like they were tugging him and we were tugging him. And I think in the end, they won. And it's also really hard for me to come to terms with prayer and hope and what that now means. And I think prayer used to me, mean something that you ask for and you want that answer. And I think now prayer to me has just become someone's deepest core of them trying to hold on to hope. It was just the high holidays this past week. It was my first holidays without Shua, and it was really intense because it's time when you, I usually would go to synagogue and pray the whole day, and I loved praying and listening to the songs, and it's from my childhood. Brings up back all these good memories, and then I love listening to the choir. And this year I said to God, I was like, I can't do it. I can't say those words.
You're still angry.
Yeah. But I try to hold on to some type of a hope to that somehow, somewhere my life's going to have to figure itself out, because I don't actually know what else to think or do.
You didn't have the luxury after he passed to lose yourself in grief. You had 2 little girls who were also grieving the loss of their beloved dad.
Yeah.
And you had a life inside you that you had to nurture. Did you worry about that pregnancy, or was it different to the other pregnancies? I mean, I can't imagine how different it must have been.
It was, I think physically, I usually have amazing pregnancies. Like you could look at me, you wouldn't even know I was pregnant. But this time I think the emotional trauma took such a toll that technically, physically, my body was fine during this pregnancy. But it was the most painful pregnancy. Like even physically towards the end, I was like, I cannot carry this baby any longer.
Yeah.
I just felt like I flew to Australia at 5 months, and when I got off the plane, I was like, Mom, I feel like I'm going into labor. Like, this is just like, it was so intense in my body.
How many months were you when Shua died?
Passed. I was around 3.5, 4 months.
And you decided to have the rest of your pregnancy in Australia, or you gave birth back?
I went back to New York.
Yeah. How was that day? How did you get through it?
When I look back at what I've done, I just feel like the only way I think I've done it is because Shua must have swooped down and be like, okay, Sim, I'm going to hold you. I'm going to help you through it, because emotionally that trauma was so intense. But I do know with my girls, I had them both naturally. I said, I'm going to do it. I don't want to have an epidural. It kind of freaked me out. And Shua was like the best labor coach, especially by number 2. He was like so good. He was amazing. He massaged me. He knew what to do. The breathing, but my labors are really fast.
Yeah.
So Emanuela, I was in a swimming pool, and like within 2 hours, I was at the hospital and she was out. And then Sophia, I was in New York, and it was like 4 a.m. I woke up, I was like, shoot, did you like kick me? And I figured that my water broke. Within like 45 minutes, she was out.
Wow.
So this baby, I was so traumatized by
hospitals,
the fast birth,
everything.
And the hospitals and everything. I was like,
and him not being there.
I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But I said, I know I'm definitely taking an epidural, because I cannot go through that labor I don't have the mental strength to do it anymore. So when I got to the hospital, I remember waking up in the morning. I was like, I think maybe I've got contractions. I had a doctor's appointment. So at 11 o'clock, I just drove to the doctor for the doctor's appointment, and I said, Dr. Jen, I think I'm in labor. She's like, no, you're way too calm. I said, no, I'm telling you, I am in labor. So she checked me, and she's like, yeah, just go to the hospital and you'll have the baby. So
who was with you?
My mum and my sisters, both sisters actually. So usually just Shua comes, and I'm fine with that, because he was my everything, all I needed. He was all I needed. And when I got to the hospital, by that time I was 3 centimeters at the doctor. When I got to the hospital, I was already 6.5. It was like 20 minutes later. And I said to them, I'm telling you now, this baby's going to come fast. I need an epidural now to slow it down. I can't do it. Anyway, 2.5 hours later, I was 8.5 centimeters. I finally got the epidural. And they said, are you sure you don't want to do it naturally? I said, no, I am really sure I do not want to do this naturally. I have suffered enough. Give me that epidural. And now I know why women take it.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
It is.
It's amazing.
You missed out those first 2 times.
I missed out totally. It was when they put that needle in.
Good times.
I was like,
good times.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. This is the best thing I've ever done. It was
probably the happiest you'd been in a long time.
Oh my God, I was like, jubilated at that point. But I knew that I had to like keep it together till that baby was out, because I knew my body just had to do it. I knew that and it's weird. Have you heard, that book by Joan Didion, My Year of Magical Thinking? And I said a few times, I was like, Shua's going to walk in. I said, I know Shua's going to walk in when I have that baby. And I really thought he would.
Sim. So you broke all over again.
Yeah. And it's true. People say that a baby brings you light, brings you love, and he does. He's just like this.
Did you know you were having a boy?
When Shua was in the hospital, actually, when I went to the doctor that first day when Shua went to the hospital, they said, do you want to find out the sex of the baby? I said, yeah, just put in an envelope. I'm going to go home and tell Shua. So I had the envelope in my bag. And when I get to the hospital, I was like, oh, whatever, we'll just open it together later. And when he was in that first week, I kept saying, Shua, when you're out of it was like the level post-ICU, it was so intensive. I said, when you're back in the ICU, we're going to open the envelope together. And the night before he passed away, the nurses who took care of him are like they're angels in human bodies completely. She said to me, she's like, Simi, I want you to open the letter with Shua together. And I said, no, I'm going to wait till he's on the 15th floor. I'm going to wait till he's better and he's a bit more awake. She's like, Sim, I want you to read it to him tonight. And I didn't want to, because that meant I was giving in to the fact that she said, it's going to be too late if you don't do it now. but she really pushed me, and I did, and I opened it. And I remember Shua used to say all the time, I live with 3 lionesses, his 2 girls and me. And when we were just the beginning of my pregnancy, he said to my younger sister, Tiritza, he's like, how cool would it be if it's like a boy? How cool would it be? And she's like, yeah, it would be pretty cool. And I just always hoped, I was like, this baby needs to be like Shua. Calm. Shua's just the opposite to me. He's calm, he's cool, he's collected. He just would walk into a room and just like gauge what's going on and then just like give everything his all. Meanwhile, I'm like all over the place. So I was like, please, can we have a baby like Shua? I want a baby Shua because my girls are like me. They're like, we go off the charts. And then I remember telling Shua, it was weird because I remember telling him when I told him and I opened it and it said boy. I knew in one part of my mind, I knew that it was Shua's last night. But the other part of my mind didn't believe it. And at the same time, it was a comfort telling him so he would know that we're having a boy. So it was like one of the craziest experiences of my life. And whenever I was with Shua, I wanted to be peaceful around him. I didn't want him to stress. I said, Shu, you're at the marathon. You're at the end. I promise you're doing amazing. You've got the hardest part is the end. And I said, we're not worried. You're fine. You're going to be fine. I kept saying that to him the whole time. And the last few minutes I said, Shu, I didn't want him to worry about us. And I said, I don't want you to worry about us. We're going to be okay. Even though now I'm like, why did I say that? We are so not okay. It's like, why did I say that? I should not have told him that. Maybe I was like, I shouldn't. And this has been one of the most crazy, terrifying experiences of my life.
I can't imagine. And then you're holding your baby boy in your arms. And I can't imagine how you felt in that room in that moment.
Everyone was crying. The nurses, the doctors, everyone. It was just like, it was. Did
you feel Shua there?
He was. You? I knew he was so there. I felt it. It's so weird. And some people, I said to my therapist, I was like, when I feel that he's there, am I just imagining it or is he there? And she said, whatever you feel, she said, it's real. It's real for you. It's real. And he was definitely there.
You're living in that year of firsts.
Yeah.
Your first Hanukkah birthdays, the birth of your son, your daughter's birthdays. It was what should have been Shua's 32nd birthday just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I want to say, how are you doing?
I used to tell Shua, I was like, I always wanted to be an actress growing up.
And, I can see that.
But I could.
You've got that in you.
But I couldn't because I was like, I'm Orthodox. How is it going to work? Like
love scenes will be tricky.
Love scenes, Saturdays, kosher. Like you just got to like eat whatever's there.
The costumes.
So it kind of. But I always wanted to be an actress. And I said to Shua when we were married, I was like, I wish I was in Hollywood. I just want to be an actress. He's like, Sim, they're not happy. You don't want to be in Hollywood. You do not want to be in Hollywood. And he's like, you've got your Instagram to act. I'm like, just you're acting like you're an actress. And when people say how I'm doing, I'm really a good actress. I'm so good. I look on the outside, I look really good and I keep myself together and composed, I guess most of the time, because I do cry at the nail salon. I cry like wherever I am. I guess what happens is the more you get used to this, the more I'm getting used to this feeling, the longer I can handle holding my composure. Even though on the inside I feel like it's just getting harder and harder. I am forever changed as a person and I'll never be the same. And the void within me is so big.
How are you girls doing?
My girls are amazing. I mean, we talk about, I'm a very expressive person. This was even in my marriage. If I was upset, Shua would know. If I was happy, he'd know. And even as a child, Chaya was much more always the reserved. If she would hold something in, and I could never hold any emotions in. And so as soon as Shua died, I'm like, there is no taboo in this family. We're going to talk about it. Daddy did this and Daddy loves that, and I'm so sad about this and I'm mad. And my 7-year-old is phenomenal. She said, Mommy, I will never forget telling her the news that her daddy passed away. I felt like I was talking to a child in an adult's body because she cried so hard for like an hour on me, and she was howling. And she said to me, we talk about this all the time, and she said to me a few hours later, she's like, Mommy, I love Hashem, but I hate him for taking Daddy. And this is before I had even like...
Hashem is God.
Hashem is God, yes. And she'll say things to me all the time. I mean, this is what from the outset, when I see other people, like other women who have lost their spouse, let's say 4 years ago, and I see her and I see their kids and they're doing okay. They're in school. Yeah. She's working.
One of my best friends, is in that situation.
But now I know what it takes to be okay. Okay, yeah. It's really hard when I see her and I'm like, her okay means they're going to therapy, there's tantrums, they're sad, they're broken.
Yes.
Their daddy's not there at their birthday, at his birthday. And okay is so different now. Okay means surviving right now. But more than that, I don't want my kids to feel like they're just surviving, because they're not. They have so many happy moments and memories, and it's so different for them than for me. And they'll have a whole different journey of grief every single day and throughout their entire lives. And Emanuela even said to me, said this like 2 days ago, she's like, Mommy, do you think they're going to find a cure for what Daddy has? She's like, I want them to find a cure, but it's going to be so annoying that Daddy didn't get that cure. And I said, yeah, that's really annoying. That's really annoying.
Really be a pisser.
That's really annoying that Daddy didn't get that cure. But so we talk about it a lot, and she has all these existential thoughts and questions. And I said to her last night, she was having a tantrum, and she was like, I was getting her in trouble because I let her stay up later, and it just backfired on me. She had a tantrum, and she's like hysterical, crying, I wish Daddy was here. And I said, you know what? I also wish Daddy was here. Sometimes when I really am sad for Daddy, I just like try to close my eyes and imagine that Daddy's right here. She's like, you always get to do that. You always get to just imagine that Daddy's there and you feel that he's there. But she's like, he's not there. I can't just feel that he's there. And she said, because he's nothing now. She's like, Mommy, what is nothing? What is Daddy now? So I said, you're right. That's a really good question. I said, I choose to feel that Daddy's here. I'm choosing to feel that he's here. And maybe it'll take you more time and you don't have to feel that, but it's really hard. But we're doing the best we can.
Your Instagram, Simi, is just such a gift. It's such a gift to anyone who has ever experienced grief or has tried to support anyone with grief. And what I love about it is that you write beautifully. You are an extraordinary writer, like
Thank you.
An incredible writer. Like I just get lost in your words. They've taught me so much. And just even the subject matter aside, you have a way of expressing yourself and writing about grief that is just truly astonishing. And I love that your Instagram is this, TheFrockNYC Instagram is this melee of here's what I'm wearing, I ate this, and then deep thoughts about grief and about Shua. And sometimes you're railing at the universe and sometimes you're just saying, this is a new thing we've designed and it's really cool and it's cute in this cute color. And I just wanted to thank you for that, because I think that grief is complex. That friend I was telling you about, she's on TV, and I have another friend who lost a baby, and she said she used to watch my friend who's on TV to see what grief looks like. And she said sometimes I'd see her laugh and I'd think, oh, okay, so it's okay for me to laugh sometimes. Right. Because I think we often cloister grief away, and the way you live it so publicly is just such a generous thing to do. And I think Shua would be incredibly proud of you as a therapist, what you are doing in the world. So thank you, and I wish you long life and all my love. And I'm so sorry that this has happened to you. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to No Filter. You can support Simi and her family and her sister and their label by checking out the lady startup that they run together. It's called TheFrockNYC on Instagram. And there, Simi writes not just of business, but of grief as well. It's one of the most extraordinary Insta accounts that I follow because she just does kind of seamlessly weave the joy of her life and her family and the challenges of her business with the roller coaster of grief. And her writing is just really, really beautiful. You can read more about Simi's life on mamamia.com.au. Follow the link in the show notes. No Filter is produced by Liza Ratliff. I'm Mia Friedman, and I'll see you on mamamia.com.au.